Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So, day 2 of spoiler season is here. And, yeah, we've got a leak. We've got a leak in the middle of spoiler season because Wizards, what are you doing? What is going on? You've got the resources to ensure that this stuff doesn't happen, and it just keeps happening. So I'm really starting to think that this is intentional. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. Regardless, yeah, I will mention that if you can see the image right now, if I put it up on the screen properly, yeah, it looks very legitimate. I believe someone mentioned this is probably the back of one of the boxes for the Commander precons. So yeah, I mean, to me, it looks legitimate. Take everything I say with a grain of salt, though, and yeah, here is my MTG.design custom version of it to make it easier to read and discuss and whatnot. So let's jump into it, and yeah, again, like I've said in these episodes, this is not confirmed yet as a spoiler. It probably will be when they talk about the actual precons, and then, sure, if you feel more comfortable buying cards for this commander, then go for it. If you'd rather wait, that's fine too. Regardless, Gandalf, Westward Voyager, a 5/5 avatar wizard for 3 green and a blue. I just thought about, I think this is like the 4th Gandalf we've seen, and I do understand that it's a really, I mean, long story, right, with a lot of different parts to it. Personally, I just don't like as much when they like don't just focus on other characters. I mean, there are a ton of characters in Lord of the Rings and a ton of notable ones that are probably gonna get left out because they're like, I want 4 versions of Gandalf and 4 versions of Frodo and 4 versions of Sam, and it's like, it kind of, I think, cheapens, to me at least, all of the, if you just had like one epic Gandalf, I think it would be better than having 4 versions of Gandalf. That being said, what this commander does is very exciting. I'm getting way off topic anyways. Whenever you cast a spell mana value 5 or greater, each opponent reveals the top card of their library. If any of those cards shares a card type with that spell, copy that spell, and you choose targets for the copy, and each opponent draws a card. Otherwise, you draw a card, and of course, a copy of a permanent spell becomes a token. So this is a very interesting commander. Now, we have kind of seen other Simic commanders in the past, or at least one that I can think of, and I might talk about later, that deals with mana value. And yeah, this one says, let me go about it in a different way, okay? So you cast big spells, you could potentially get a big payoff, and a very big payoff again. Potentially free spells off the top of your opponent's libraries if you match their spells, or match one of their spells. You know what I mean? So the benefit is, well, big. It does give your opponent somewhat of a benefit as well, because when you say, hey, let's catch your things, like, also, here's a card in replacement, essentially. You get something out of it. That being said, if you hit nothing, you also get a benefit by drawing a card. And Wizards has been doing this more often lately, where they're like, yeah, here's a big splashy effect, but it's not like, oh, you whiffed. Sorry. It's like, oh, you whiffed. That's okay. Here's a mini reward. And I wasn't sure if that really is necessary for this one, but yeah, I mean, because the payoff is so big when you hit, or potentially so big. And of course, there are ways to kind of ensure that you're going to hit, or at least make it more likely that you're going to hit, or that you know ahead of time if you're going to hit or not. And then some pretty crazy things can happen from there. So yeah, there's some pretty crazy things that can happen with this one. This one I can see players being pretty excited about. Again, if this is an actual spoiler, I do like that they are starting to take Simic commanders in different directions. It's not just lands and ramp and draw. Yay. No, it's definitely more unique than that. And again, I do like kind of big mana tribal. I think that's kind of fun. I mean, I guess you could really throw in Karuga if you wanted to as a companion for this, and just be like, hey, yeah, everything in the deck is 3 or more, because I really want to focus again on that 5 or more for the most part. So you could do that Karuga companion with this. You could definitely see that being a thing. That being said, I'm not going to be focusing on that with my deck tech, not deck tech, goodness gracious, quick take in this episode. I did not do a full decker on this one yet. So I'm going to be going through, you know, budget buys. Cards are less than $1 cards within my budget, and the pricier picks cards that are greater than $1 cards outside of my personal budget. And there are going to be some cards in there that are below, you know, that 3 CMC Karuga. I'm so sorry, Karuga. I love you. You're one of my favorite well, you're my companion for one of my commanders, but one of my favorite decks. Regardless, let's jump into those budget buys. And first up, well, let's talk about Lantern of Insight. An incredible card for this deck, and again, a reason that I wouldn't necessarily go Garuga might just be for this, because this card is huge, and yeah, it's even underneath $1 now with a mystery edition foil, I don't even know. Lantern of Insight, an artifact for a single mana. Each player plays the top of their library revealed, tap, sacrifice it, target player shuffles their library. This is huge. This is massive. This is full information that you need. Again, not only can you see what you're going to be drawing into, which is nice, I mean, your opponents can see that too, which is not nice, but you get to see the top of your opponent's library, so you know before you actually cast a spell if you're going to be able to match one of your opponents, and therefore if you're going to be able to copy that spell. So this is huge. Again, you can kind of just curate what actually you're going to play based on what is on top. If someone's got an artifact on top and you really want to copy that, do it. Do it. It can be absolutely massive. I probably should have mentioned earlier, hey, if you are interested in this commander and you aren't concerned that this is a leak and has not been confirmed, but it seems like a spoiler, if you're not concerned about that, make sure you check out that card listing in the description below and consider picking some of these cards, because yeah, this is a commander that I can see getting pretty popular if this is an actual commander. Moving on, Ghoulcaller's Bell. Again, top of the library manipulation is huge. Once you have that information, once you know what is on top, being able to get rid of certain things can be massive. Tab, each player puts the top card of the library in their graveyard. Basically, each player mills. So, for a single mana, you can get something down that can mill everyone. So again, spin the wheel, essentially, with every single player. You get Land of Insight out. This is a perfect combination card with it, because you got perfect information. You're like, okay, I've got an enchantment, I've got an artifact in my hand. My opponents don't have anything on top that I can actually copy. Let's get rid of everything. And then, you know what? Maybe I can hit something else. I've got 3 more chances, essentially, right? 1 for each opponent to hit one of those kinds of cards. And maybe you do. And then maybe you cast that. Having extra copies of this, essentially, I mean, not extra copies because you only have 1 in the deck, but extra ways that basically do this as well, like Pixis Pandemonium, can be great as well. This is somewhat similar. Tap, each player exiles the top card of their library face down. You can also sacrifice this and, you know, cast things or whatever. That's not the focus of this. The focus of this is, again, top library manipulation. Being able to say, hey, I don't like what's currently on top, so let's get rid of it. And then you can maybe hit something again that matches something in your hand. Or you can kind of force the issue with Expel from Araska, a fantastic card. City's Blessing, you're going to have it. You're playing Commander. You're going to get to 10 permanents. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, but get the City's Blessing, which you will. You can put it on top of its owner's library instead. So being able to set yourself up, being like, okay, I want to ensure that I get this amazing non-land permanent that my opponent has in play on top of their library, and then I can make a copy of it. So yeah, have fun with that. Absolutely crazy. Moving on, Psychic Surgery, yet another fantastic way to set the top of libraries and to know what's on top. This one is a bit weird, and it's kind of like Fate Stealing. No, Fate Stealing. There we go. Not Fate Stealing. Whenever opponent shuffles their library, you may look at the top 2 cards of their library. You can exile one of those cards, and put the rest on the top of the library in any order. Basically, hey, I can curate the top of your library whenever you're shuffling. Shuffling happens a lot more than you might expect it to. Of course, yeah, tutors, that shuffles. But that also includes within it, like, land tutors. If you're playing against any green deck or just someone running Wayfarer's Bauble, they're going to be tutoring. They're going to be shuffling their library, and you are going to be able to say, let's not do that. Even a simple Evolving Wilds, cracking that will shuffle their library. Then you can set the top of their library. You might know what's on top, or you can get rid of something you don't want them to have. So yeah, knowing what's on top can be huge. Speaking of huge, hey, Errant Street Arts can do so much work in this deck. So much work for you. It's a 0/3 Flash Defender and Haste. That doesn't matter. What matters is, well, Haste might matter. Pay 1 in a blue, tap, copy target spell you control that wasn't cast, choose targets for the copy. So basically, again, when you are copying those things off the top of your opponent's libraries, then you get an extra copy of that just by paying a single, or not single, 2 mana essentially with this. And again, you can do that right away with that haste. Next up, Selesnyologist. This can really take advantage of the fact that those permanents come into play as tokens that you are copying. Pay 2 and a green, exile target creature card from a graveyard, then populate, which basically means that you get a token that's copied by a creature token you control. So again, if you copied any opponent's creature off the top of your library, you are getting a creature token version of it. Now you can populate that. You can make more and more copies of it, and this can be absurd. This is a repeatable effect. This really can take advantage of ETBs, LTBs that your opponent's creatures might have. Moving on, I mentioned this earlier a little bit, or at least reference it. Emoti, Celebrant of Bounty. This one is yet another commander that is in Simic and really cares about actually getting value out of big mana spells. Cascade, so that's nice, just some additional value there. Spells you cast converted mana cost 6 or greater have Cascade. So again, when you're casting those big spells, you get additional value out of that. And if you cascade down into something that costs 5, I believe, double check me in the comments below, but I believe Gandalf doesn't care where you're casting that spell from. It could be from exile, which is like, what you're getting with Cascade essentially, right? So you can just, get extra value out of that. You get the trigger again with Gandalf. Moving on, Thrix's Sudden Storm can help you out in a different way. Flash Flying, spells with converted mana cost 5 or greater, cost 1 less cast, can't be countered. So, your big spells now cannot be countered, which is huge to ensure that they are getting through. And also that cost reduction can go for miles with this kind of a deck. Again, the more cost reducers you have, the more likely you are to be able to cast more and more spells to be able to, well, really take advantage of that trigger from your commander. And when it comes to big spells, you can also take advantage of ones that have multiple card types, like Soul of New Phyrexia, which I didn't realize with a reprint is now budget friendly, and I love that. I used to love this card, still do. I just haven't played it in a while because it hasn't been budget friendly. 6/6 Trampling Phyrexian Avatar that has 5 permanents you control gain indestructible up turn. Pay 5 exile from your graveyard, permanents you control gain indestructible up turn. Basically protect your things while it's in play or when it's in your graveyard. This is a fantastic way to protect your team, and yeah, you're going to have some crazy board positions in this kind of a deck, I am sure. On top of that, again, it is an artifact creature, meaning meets the requirement for, well, 1 of 2 permanent types that your opponents might have on top of their libraries that you can then copy for free. Moving on, Archetype of Endurance. On the other side of things, I mean, not other side really, but this is an enchantment creature. So again, it hits both enchantments, it hits creatures, whatever it's going to hit, it shares a card type with those. 6/5 Boar. Creatures you control have Hexproof. Creature opponents control lose Hexproof, can't have or gain Hexproof. So just a nice way to protect your things again. And on top of that, make it so your opponents can't protect their things with Hexproof. So again, meeting that requirement for multiple things. Make sure you're keeping that in mind for some spells that cost 5 or greater. Or, when it comes to spells that cost 5 or greater, maybe ones that can be cast easier. Again, we talked about cost reducers. What about a card that can reduce itself? Anyway, Treasure Cruise. Delve. So you can cast it for 1 generic less for each card you exile from your graveyard. Essentially, you're going to be casting this for a single blue mana most of the time. Draw 3 cards. Yeah, Ancestral Recall, essentially, without being instant speed and without it just inherently being 1 mana. Gross. But yeah, being able to say, okay, I am still getting that value out of this card. Again, this is technically 8 mana, even if I just pay 1 for it. So when I'm casting it, my commander is going to trigger off of it. And again, if my opponents have any sorceries on top, I'm going to be copying those. But now we've talked about the budget buys. Let's move on to the pricey picks. And yeah, this one is quite pricey. The first one to start off with, Nyx Bloom Ancient. Definitely over $1. 5/5. Again, enchantment creature. Enchantment creature. It is multiple things, so keep that in mind again and how that it can impact you. And also, it comes to impacting you. Hey, if you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times that much mana instead. Again, you're going to have some really high CMC things in this deck. You're going to need a good amount of ramp, and this is just hypercharging your ramp. I mean, this is like, hey, your lands tap for 3 times. So, I mean, again, I guess if you have, a bounce land or whatnot there, it taps for 6. Gross. So, yeah, this is an absurd card. This is absolutely gross. And again, it'll give you even more value just by casting it and getting that trigger from your commander. Speaking of extra free value, Twinning Staff. Okay. If you would copy a spell 1 or more times instead, copy it that many times less additional time, you choose targets for the copy, and you could also pay to copy a spell. Basically, hey, just by having this in play and having your commander in play, you are getting an extra copy for free. So again, your commander is going to copy spells. You get a singular extra copy for free with Twinning Staff just for it being in play. This card is absurd. I wish it was more budget friendly. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do with it. Moving on, Mind's Dilation, a card that definitely used to be budget friendly a long time ago, no longer. 7 mana enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts their first spell each turn, that player exiles the top card of their library. If it's a non-land card, you may cast while paying its mana cost. This can just chain things very strangely. Because again, I believe that Gandalf does not care where you're casting that card from, right? You can cast it off the top of their library. It's not only a card you may cast while paying its mana cost. So again, you are casting it from the top of an opponent's library. I don't believe Gandalf cares where you're casting it from. Therefore, it's like, okay, cool, I'll cast that. Okay, cool, I'll cast something else off the top of your library because it matches. So this can just give you an absurd amount of value. Speaking of value, let's cast a ton of things for free. Aminatu's Augury. This card is great. Wish it was budget friendly. It was a long time ago. Exile top 8 cards of your library. You may put a land card from on them on the battlefield until end turn for each non-land card type. You may cast a card of that type from the exile cards up paying its mana cost. This actually got slightly better with battles now being a thing too. Basically, again, cast multiple things off the top of your library for free. And again, Gandalf doesn't care where you cast them from, so you have multiple chances to hit cards off the top of your opponent's libraries. Or, you know what, just cast everything for free. If you got the budget for it, Omniscience, sure. 10 mana, basically an I win the game kind of spell. You may cast non-land cards from your hand without paying their mana cost. Just cast everything for free, and you're still going to get that trigger from your commander every single time you cast something that costs 5 or greater. Again, even though you're casting for free, it still counts the mana value that that card inherently has. So, yeah, basically, you win. I'm sure you win once you get this in play, basically. Next up, the Immortal Sun, a card that doesn't let you just win, but is a very, very good card. Players can activate Planeswalkers' loyalty abilities. That just shuts other players down if you're not running any Planeswalkers. Cool. Beginning of your draw step, draw an initial card. Cool. Extra card. As well as you cast cost bonus to cast. Again, cost reduction is king for a deck like this. Being able to save a ton of mana can help you have even more explosive turns. And a nice little Anthem effect. Creature control get +1/+1. This does a lot of things. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife and really helps you out in a lot of situations. Moving on, Krupik's God of Horizons. Again, like I mentioned, enchantment creatures or artifact creatures or things that have multiple permanent types can really help you out. Krupix does that and then some. Enchantment creature, God, that is indestructible, so it's hard to deal with. It might not be a creature for you some of the time, again, unless you've got, Devotion 7. You have no extra hand size, that can be huge. And on top of that, if unused mana would enter your mana pool, becomes colorless instead. So being able to just say, no, I just have this glut of mana I'm saving up essentially, and you can use it whenever you need to have big explosive turns, that can be huge. Torrential Gearhulk, an artifact creature, again, hitting those multiple types. Flash, you can flash it whenever you need to. Again, surprisingly, get that trigger from your commander as well. Enters the battlefield, cast target instant sorcery from your grave. Target instant from your graveyard, paying its mana cost. That card putting your graveyard this turn, exile instead. So if you have any instants that cost 5 or more, again, getting that trigger a second time. Or how about like Thought Monitor? Just a very simple creature. 2/2 flyer, affinity for artifacts. And it's going to enter the battlefield and draw you 2 cards. So again, this one you can cast for just a single mana if you've got enough artifacts in play. Again, it does have 2 permanent types on it, so it's likely to hit something off the top of your opponent's libraries, especially if you've got like a Lantern of Insight in play to know that ahead of time, or a Ghoul Caller's Bell to then, mill to ensure that you can actually have something on top. And also, you're just going to get some extra card advantage out of something like this. So yeah, there's a lot of crazy things that you can do with this commander. Again, I kind of don't understand what is going on with Wizards, because it seems like over the past years, more and more lately, we've been getting more and more leaks, and you think they'd be getting better at this than worse. You think they'd be like, oh, that's the problem, we should solve it. But yeah, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all this. Let me know what your thoughts are on the commander. I don't want to take away anything from the commander, and again, please, please, please take everything I've said with a grain of salt, because this has not been officially confirmed. At least I've not seen it yet. I believe that's been officially confirmed. So yeah, make sure you take everything with a grain of salt. If you are convinced this is real, well, maybe pick up some of those cards in the card list, link in the description below. Also, I'd love to hear from you on your thoughts on, do you think Wizards is going a little too far with the just number of versions of commanders, of legendary creatures? Again, I think this is the 4th Gandalf. Do we need 4 Gandalfs? I thought it might have been really cool to have, like, a Gandalf the Gray, which flips into a Gandalf the White, and you just have one of them and just make it really cool, instead of having like, oh yeah, here's just different parts of the story and the same creature multiple times. I kind of just don't like that nearly as much, versus having like a flip version of it. I think could be just better. Like, here's this creature at the beginning, here's this creature at the end. I think it takes away from the actual characters. Personally, I think it takes away from the characters. And again, there's so many other characters in Lord of the Rings that are not going to get their time to shine because, well, Wizards decided that this is the way they're going to go about it, and really highlighting certain characters, and yes, very important ones, but much more so than other ones. And other ones are just going to kind of get lost. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of that. Yeah, let me know your thoughts on this card. And of course, as always, well, stay tuned for even more episodes throughout the spoiler season. Definitely going to be more coming out, more exciting cards. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.